The views and opinions of this broadcast do not reflect the views and opinions of Armed Media, New Productions and its affiliates. Enjoy the show.
Teflon Pan Man. I'm the Teflon Pan Man. Ain't nothing gonna stick on me.
Yes, hello and good evening, everybody. Welcome to All You Can Eat. I am your host, Rob Rosenthal, and this is episode number 7 of the podcast. And I'm very excited because tonight I have a guest again, and he's a funny dude. And he's an expert in the field of wine and spirits, so that's going to be interesting right there. Because anytime you have wine and spirits, and then you couple that with someone who is, well, funny and entertaining and engaging, a raconteur, as they say, we're going to have a lovely conversation with Mr. Anthony Guglio momentarily. But here on episode number 7, I would like to just shout out a couple of people because, it's all still new, 7 episodes in. You don't master something 7 episodes in, but I feel some sense of progress. And what I would like to say, first of all, is thanks to the guys over at Armed Radio who produce the podcast, which runs live on Wednesday nights at 8 o'clock Eastern. It runs live up on a radio station up in Boston. It's on a couple of different websites you can find here. And moreover, when we're done with the podcast, it is uploaded by the folks over at Armed Radio, and you can then listen to the podcast on YouTube. You could listen to it on SoundCloud. You can get this podcast on Spreaker. And in about a week from now, maybe 2 weeks, we're going to be up on iHeartRadio network, which is really exciting. Anyway, so thanks to you guys over at Armed Radio, and another thanks to my man Mick Reed. I don't know, Mick, that you're out there listening, but that song that shows up at the beginning of my podcast, Teflon Pan Man, written and performed by my friend Mick Reed, super talented dude, singer, songwriter, performer, artist, businessman. All good, and thank you for letting me use the song, Mick. I do appreciate it. Shout out, So that's the shouts for now. Let's get right into a conversation with young Anthony Guglio. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, my guest tonight, I am thrilled to say, is my friend Anthony Guglio. And Anthony, I got to say, and I'll be the first to admit it. I'm kind of reading it off your profile here. But Anthony is one of the most entertaining wine and spirits authorities on the planet, which is quite nice. I don't know what's happening on the other 8 planets, but on this one, Anthony is the man, and he writes. He's an educator and a raconteur. We're going to talk about some of that work that you've done. And he motivates countless people, especially those that are interested in wine and spirits, to trust their own taste and relax the rules. He's witty, unpretentious, and his work can be seen in the weekly Wine Rant column that he writes for Food and Wine magazine. And he's also the wine director of the Centurion Lounge, which is an American Express operation. Anthony's written like a whole ton of books, and you got a lot of fans out there, Mr. Guglio. And I'm particularly fond, as an international branding guy, of the designation, the Wine Wise Guy. You'll tell me, I hope that you're still using that. Ladies and gentlemen, say hello to my friend Anthony Guglio. How are you, Anthony?
Terrific, Rob. How are you, man?
I'm quite good, and I'm legitimately, genuinely, I should say, kind of happy to talk to you because some people just stand out, and in your case, you stand out for the 2 reasons that matter most. One, that you have expertise and credibility in the field of wine and spirits, and 2, that you are a legitimately entertaining human being. So there's that.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
My pleasure. Let's start. We're going to talk about two subjects. One is wine, obviously, and the other is you. So let's start with you. Are you still? Do you still use the designation wine wise guy?
It's sort of stuck. I mean, I used it for a lot of years, but I think some get it, some don't, and I don't. So it's not on my card anymore. But I think in the background it's there. But I think that it was sort of tongue cheeky, and if you're from the Northeast and you understand, the whole Italian thing, and how I'm always directly linked to The Sopranos, regardless of how my family raised me. People always make the wise guy comment. So, yeah, and I think it does. It sort of has to be. If it has to be explained, then maybe it's not such a great tagline. But I think the fact that I refuse to take wine seriously and make it this hallowed beverage of the gods, nectar of the gods. I've always been a smarty pants about it, and combined with my sense of humor, I just make fun of it all the time. I make fun of everything, and so it's sort of like I'm a wise ass, a wise guy, wise ass, whatever. But that said, people still use it, and if they're using it nicely, I'm happy to have it.
Trust me when I tell you, Anthony, that I can relate in this way. I go by the handle oftentimes of short order dad, and here I'm assuming that kind of everybody knows what that means because I grew up in and around, as you did, people that were called short order cooks. And yet then I started, going around the country and people will, I go like, do you know what a short order cook is? And I was surprised at how many people had not really heard of that designation. So believe me, I know exactly what you're describing here with the whole wise guy thing.
People think you're much taller than they expected.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, geez, I expected you to be a little dude. Hey, Anthony, speaking about kind of, where we grew up, I think that's really super important. With whoever I'm speaking to in the world, I kind of am inclined to ask them where they're from. In your case, it's not, sure, talk about where you're from, but more importantly, how your kind of background and upbringing influenced you and kind of led you on the path to be, talking about, wine and your interest in food. Talk about your growing up thing.
So I'm from Jersey City, New Jersey, which is literally on the Hudson facing, growing up, the Twin Towers. But from the New York side, it's so far away. I call the Hudson the Rubicon because, to get my New York friends to come visit is always a challenge. And then when they get here, they're like, oh, this is pretty cool. And actually, I'll make a tangent and say that, I've waited my entire life for Jersey City to rebound. And, the food scene here is actually, quite dynamic and exciting, and it took long enough, but I'm no longer ashamed of inviting people to this side of the river to have amazing food, beginning with Dan Richards' Pizza at Rasa, which is just, it's causing earthquakes on the other side of the Hudson.
I just want to interrupt you for 1 second and say I know I personally have not been invited by you to go, and that's just FYI, just for future reference. Go on. I'm sorry to interrupt you. You go back, Anthony. Where were you?
So, but I grew up in this like Scorsese film or central casting scenario that looked like exactly what you would see in one of those films. It was the Italian-American white working class neighborhood where everybody's ethnicity was worn on their sleeves, and you all talked about each other that way. Like I had, we paid rent to Ethel the Greek for the garage, and we bought wine from the Hungarian vendors across the street who made wine in their backyard, and there was all that. But so everyone knew everybody. Everyone was related. My whole block was practically related. My maternal grandparents lived upstairs. And that's where the cooking comes in because the doors are all open. It's like, we're in like an apartment house, but there's no closed doors. So it's just up and down, up and down, up and down. And then everyone's down in the basement where all the meals are eaten because down the basement is where, you dirty the basement because it's not been a proper apartment. So that's where, all the frying is done, the cooking is done, and the long table is set, and people just keep popping in. But with my grandmother upstairs, she was always, when she wasn't working, she was a seamstress for 60 years at a sewing factory. But she watched cooking shows, pre-cable, where we have Channel 11 and Channel 13 showing cooking shows.
Right.
And she would sit there and literally, one of the funniest things I tell my kids is that, this is before DVR, before cable. you had to wait for a repeat if you missed the show like 6 months or a year. But literally, like when she would flash when the recipes would come up on a Galloping Gourmet, which was a child, she would say, "You take the top half, I'll take the bottom half." We'd be writing as fast as we could on scrap sheets just to get the recipes. Now everyone thinks, "Oh, you must have had this magical food growing up," and that's where like you pull the needle off the record and hear that my grandmother was the second of 12. 8 of them survived. Her oldest sister, Mary, was born handicapped, so my grandmother was basically in charge, and her father was such a hardliner that he took her out of 8th grade and sent her to work. So she had to support the other kids. So she never even got to go to high school, the poor grandma. And what that means is that she never learned to cook from her mother. So my other aunts all were great cooks, but my grandmother was the Depression era conversion chart. So olive oil becomes corn oil, chicken stock becomes water, sugar becomes what's Splendid or Splenda, whatever it's called. Like she cut every corner possible in her recipe. So she would take Julia Child's recipe for beef bourguignon,
right,
and it would turn into rubber chuck steak and every other corner that she would cut. But the fact is, we cooked together, and I learned a ton from her. And then when I was much older, I would show her, like, "Man, here's your polenta made with chicken stock and served with real Parmigiano Reggiano."
Right.
She would say, "I don't even recognize it."
Was she impressed with it though?
Always, yeah. She would never she would always tisk all the costs.
Right.
She paid for all 8 of the 6 grandchildren. She paid for all of our, of course, Catholic school education straight to college on her $4.20 an hour as a seamstress. It's a miracle. I mean, she gave us savings bonds every year to put towards education, and I still have them because they take 30 years to mature.
Right, nice.
And she only died 6 years ago. But yeah, so it's pretty amazing. And then down the basement were the magical Sunday lunches that lasted all day and evolved into card games. And that's where I learned about wine, because I was in charge of decanting from the gallon into the carafe, and then pouring it over a few ice cubes into rocks glasses. At the adult table and at the kids' table, we got the spaghetti spritzer, which was red wine on the rocks with a cream soda float.
Nice.
And it was there to teach kids that the wine belongs on the table with all the meals. It was to dilute it for us, of course, that it wasn't as strong. But the truth is, Robin, it probably tasted better than the unadulterated red wine they were drinking at the table.
yeah. I get that. They weren't going for the good stuff back then. I hear you.
Right. So wine was on the table, and we were allowed to drink it without Dyfus breaking the door down and taking us away.
Right.
And it still stands for my own kids today. My daughter is 15. My son Marco is 13. They have not tried wine. They've taken a little sip here and there, but I'm not going to put cream soda into it. But they're not interested yet. But they get offered, which I think is sort of like some reverse psychology of preventing any problems later. So like, anytime you want a sip, let's have a sip. And so like, Sophia will try champagne because she knows it's fancy and it's supposed to be great, and she'll say, "I just don't get it." My son likes the smell of beer, but then he doesn't like the taste of it. So far, so good. so far, all good.
Yeah, it's funny. I'm listening to you and I'm thinking you and I could spend the entire time talking about subjects related to what it is that you just mentioned. There are two that come to mind. One, for example, is that I grew up on the Galloping Gourmet and did the same thing to some extent as you. I mean, your grandmother and I have this in common. I would watch the Galloping Gourmet, and I would literally once when I was young wrote down one of the recipes and decided to make it for my parents for their anniversary dinner. It was crepe de fruits de la mer, which was a seafood crepe in a white wine sauce that I made when I was a kid, and they loved it, and I couldn't stomach it because the wine sauce was way too sophisticated for my palate. But I always considered him somewhat of a hero, and you've just reminded me that somewhere on tape, somewhere I have an hour with him on the phone. I'm glad that you told me that. The other thing too, by the way, Anthony, I don't know if you've had this thing, but anybody that you and I see right now in the world of food and wine, whether we're talking about chefs or cookbook authors or restaurateurs, I think there's no question that 99.9% of them had that kind of love built in from like the first 3, 4, 5 years of their life. There was something in the upbringing that turns you into who we are.
Yeah.
Have you seen that? I mean, would you agree with me? I mean, how many people?
I would.
Yeah.
I would. There's, and I think we've talked about this offline. I was lucky enough to be asked to speak at the Moth probably 8 years ago, maybe 6 years ago, 2012. And I told a story that was the complete opposite of anything that anyone expected, because I'm usually very funny, and it's all about telling the wise guy jokes. And when they interviewed me and said, like, we've heard you're a good storyteller, let's talk stories. They immediately stopped me and said, this is not about a joke. It's not about making people laugh. The best stories are laughter, of course, but also a real good emotional response. And women, this goes back to, I swear we'll get there, Rob, but this goes back to my dad, because she said, your dad loomed large in a lot of your stories, but I'm going to take a gamble here, and you could tell me F off and hang up, but I'm thinking he probably wasn't such a nice guy to you when you were young, and he's completely reshaped your life. And I didn't want to hear this. I was like, well, that's not going to be part of the speech. And she said, I want you to just think about it, and if you want to take the spread, I'll call you back in 24 hours. And if not, you're doing fine. And that was the end of it. So, of course, she planted the seed, and the next day we get back on the phone. And what the net of it is this. I have zero doubt, Rob, that I would be a chef today if it weren't for my dad's discouragement, because of his beliefs that cooking was women's work, and he was a teamster, and I didn't like to play ball, and I liked to cook with my grandmother, and he didn't like coming home and finding me in an apron when I should be outside, breaking things and throwing rocks through windows.
Right.
So he completely derailed that, and we talk about it today. He's coming over for Easter Sunday to tell me everything I make is delicious, and he's so sorry, and he always says it. But back then, in the 1970s, early 70s, there was none of that.
Right.
America Talia or Lagasse saying bam and making cooking cool. There's none of that.
Right.
So I had no positive role model besides my grandmother, and she wasn't acceptable according to central casting in my house. So I just went. I just forgot that idea and gave it up, but found my way there through journalism. I'm a journalist first. I worked at Fordham at Lincoln Center, and my second job out of college, my first was a travel researcher, but that didn't go so well because they wouldn't let me write. I went to a trade pub, and my editor there was one who said, "Why aren't you writing about wine? You talk about it constantly." And I thought, because they're all 60-year-old British critics, from Decanter magazine, and she said, which is why a 22-year-old could probably do some damage. And I took her advice, and that led to learning the vocabulary of wine and description, and food writing came next, and it all started there. So I owe my career to my old editor-in-chief, Dora Hatras, a national real estate investor of all publications. But she's the one who gave me the confidence to go in that direction with when 12, 15 years earlier, I'd been terrified to even think about it because my dad would be mad.
And you've been doing damage ever since in the best possible sense. Well, let's segue. That's a perfect segue into wine. So, let's go. Let's do this. Let me just ask you like some basic questions about wine, because I mean, even though here we are in 2018, and people are like intensely involved with food, there's still always kind of this vague sense of unknowing and anxiety when it comes to, like, people just, for the most part, still, and maybe my perception is wrong, don't feel entirely confident with the subject matter. It's not that they don't love it, it's just that they kind of never really know what to do, what to choose, what to drink. What are you seeing in the world in general trends? I mean, in terms of like more people drinking, more young people, what's happening in the world of wine right now, Anthony?
There's a lot. You took me in 5 directions there.
I know, I do that. I'm sorry about that. Pick one, anyone.
Well, first, we've never been drinking. We are drinking more wine in this country now than ever before.
Okay, good.
And it's fun to watch that, because when I became a sommelier, I studied to become a sommelier, not a master. Nobody cared 25 years ago about that. I became a sommelier at the French school that was called the Sommelier Society, and that was in 1991. And from there, I went to work at Windows on the World for 2 years with Kevin Zarelli and worked in the private wine club until the night before they bombed it in '93. If you looked at statistically, when I started writing about wine in 1992, I went to Wine Enthusiast. I was working there during the day as managing editor and working at night at Windows on the World, really trying to immerse myself in wine. And I was reading statistics at the time. I could be wrong, but I swear in global wine consumption, I think we were in like 16th place. Mm-hmm. Like below Paraguay. I mean, it was crazy. What were we drinking? Well, there was a lot of wine coolers and a lot of beer, a lot of spirits, a lot of cocktails, but it wasn't about fine wine at all. And now, since 2012, and continues all these years later, we've been the number one wine consuming country on the planet. And I had that with a joke. I think until China really starts to drink because they're making a lot of wine now. And they take over the market in a second. But Americans drink more wine than ever, keeping me in business, keeping you in business, and it's great. But that said, I will tell you that no matter who I'm talking to, and I say, from school teacher to CEO, doesn't matter, people never ever think they know the right answer. It's always, well, what do I know? What do I know? And I always remind people when I teach classes or I'm talking to the most opinionated people on the planet, the most confident, centered people on the planet. American righteousness is so worn on the sleeve. We know everything. And we terrorize waiters at restaurants with our orders for food. Right. I want my burger this way. I want my bun toasted this way. Take the salad back. It has a half an ounce too much dressing, or I want dressing on the side. We have a million orders when it comes to the food. When it comes to the wine, our heads are down, and we just say, I'll take a glass of red.
Right, exactly.
We think, what do I know? What do I know? And you know a lot. And if you would just ask some questions. So that's constant. I try and, when I say empower, it sounds like I'm I'm trying to sound all fancy, but I try and give people, I give them the permission they apparently need to admit that they don't know anything, which is just say, I tend to like this. I sort of like that. I drink a lot of cab. I'm willing to try something else, but call a wine professional over in a restaurant or in a wine shop and say, this is what I typically drink. I'm not married to it, or maybe I am, but what do you have? And name your price. No matter what, people are like, I don't like to talk money or I don't want to seem cheap. It's all going to come out and you walk to the register anyway with your $10 bottle of red. It's there. It's there's no hiding. Just own it. But people are terrified to admit that they know what they're talking about. So, one of the 3 million hats I wear is I'm the online sommelier for American Express Platinum, which is through Food and Wine Magazine's relationship. American Express used to own Food and Wine, Travel and Leisure, and so for Platinum Card members, I am your online sommelier. So people can opt in and ask me questions, and it's always really funny because. This has been, I think, 14 years now I've been doing this, and people think that they're texting me. It's like they think that I'm waiting there by the phone to get their message. So it's like, I'm looking at these 3 bottles at the buy right, and here's my thought. Can you recommend one? But the fine print says Anthony will answer you within 48 hours, and sometimes they catch me, and it's great. And I'm like, hey, hold on, I can help you. Then there's the devastated guy, and it's really happy, Rob. A guy wrote to me and said, dude, in men's room with wine list, date waiting.
Very good.
And I got it. I didn't see it till the next day. So I replied, dude, so sorry. I hope you didn't wake up alone. That's all I could tell him.
Yeah.
But people constantly ask me for permission. One woman wrote to me, and I use it all the time as an example. I am the 80s Chardonnay lover. It says so much, which, I love it. I call it the dynasty era of Chardonnay. It was big shoulder pads, over-the-top richness and glitz. And everyone knows what that means, the big, buttery, pillory Chardonnay that everyone claims to hate now, although a lot of people still will say guilty pleasure. I love that. Right. If they're talking to me like sotto voce. But it's when you get, when she says this, I refuse to apologize. I'm sick of defending myself. I like it with steak. I like it with chicken. I like it with fish. I like it with chips. It doesn't matter. But what would you say to people who make fun of me? And I said, wow, I love a question like that because my answer is as Jersey as it comes. How dare you? How dare you judge me? Who are you to tell me what's delicious?
Right.
That's really what it comes down to. How dare anybody tell somebody else what's delicious? If you like, think about it. Like I said to her, if you needed any further help to get that buttery Chardonnay alongside a steak, think about a beautiful French steak frite that comes out with a medallion of herb butter on top. The butter's on the steak, the butter's in the glass. It's all going to work. It's all delicious. And at the end of the day, here's what I say to anybody who thinks that there's a wrong pairing on the table right now. Think about it. Should I have this or water? And you have your answer. Right? Like, there's no wrong answer. People always think, like, oh my God, Rob, one person wrote, oh my God, the steaks are on the grill and all we have is Sauvignon Blanc. What now?
Right. Oh God, that's a nightmare.
I happen to catch that one and wrote, well, it's either that or water. I think you'll be fine. I tend to squeeze lemon over my grilled meats. You have it in the glass. Enjoy. It's the same thing. I mean, people think that there's got to be a right answer. Like, well, Anthony would say it has to be a Bordeaux, and it's probably from this vintage. And great, I could play that game. I certainly, I take great pleasure rating people's cellars and telling them what they should pair. But I'm also collector's worst nightmare because I keep saying to them, I just want you to understand that you're supposed to be drinking this while you're on it, and it's alive, before your spouse or your kids sell it at a garage sale, because that's going to happen. And I've been to all of them. I've been to all of them buying bottles for $15 that they paid $80 for, and are now worth $200. Because if you don't drink it now, what's the point? If you have the means, by the way, to collect wine, you have the means to buy old wine when you need it. That's what I tell everybody. But it's very, very controversial. I just think drink wine every day and enjoy it, and end of story.
Yeah, it's funny. Again, you claimed that I took you in 5 directions, and yet you kind of addressed all 5 directions, which is fantastic. No, really, and I'm with you. It's kind of like at some point I found myself like saving the good stuff, and then and by the way, I'm in an apartment. I'm saving it at 80 degrees. Do you know what I'm saying? At some point, when you open up one of those bottles that you saved for years, and you realize now you have red wine vinegar. I kind of changed my tune and said, F it. It's like it's now or why not now? Do you know? So I'm with you on that.
What I say to everybody is this: unlike a Purdue oven stuff or roasted chicken, there is no button that's going to pop up in your bottle and tell you it's ready.
Right.
You never know, and it's not just your 80-degree apartment. Which, by the way, is terrible, but I get it. Although I used to have wine geek sound friends who would leave their air conditioners on all year long.
That's good. That's a trick, yeah.
That's a bachelor with a lot of money. That's not.
Right. That's someone who, yeah, I got it.
So, Rob, you mentioned keeping your wine in your 80-degree apartment. I have an apartment too. I luckily, pre-kids, so we're going back 15 years ago, I bought a Sub-Zero under-counter fridge when I was redoing our kitchen in our new apartment back then. So I can keep some wine cold, but a ton of it is in my part of baking away. And I have to say, this is something that always opens eyes, and you can see people's shoulders go back like, wow, like he's actually legitimizing what I really secretly want to do, and it's chilling red wine. Because there's nothing, you come home on a 80-degree day in New York, we're getting ready for that, even though it looks like spring when we get here, but you get home and you have a Lorette, it's not in the fridge, it's in the case or the shelf or wherever. What to do, and I say there's absolutely nothing wrong with making an ice bucket and putting wine in it for 5 to 10 minutes. It changes everything. And people think that, when I shock it, when I ruin it, it's something I wrote about in Esquire probably in 2001 about the shameful temperature of wine by the glass in New York City back then, where, for $18 a glass, you're getting 80-degree Cabernet. And then the New York Magazine asked me to write it like 4 years later, and the temperatures had all fallen, which was a good sign. But it talked about, restaurants who don't have the room to store it properly, especially the cheaper end, like by the glass, they're serving at room temperature. People think it's room temperature. So my article, the argument in the article was, ask anybody walking down Fifth Avenue with a microphone, what is the proper temperature for red wine? They will tell you room temperature.
Right.
Or they'll say it's sort of like room temperature, but asking something in its paragraph, because it begins at the lightest end of the spectrum, high acid reds, the Pinot Noirs, the Gamay, the Beaujolais, it's 55. 55 is shocking to most people because they can't believe that you could serve wine that cool. And then, mid-range Syrahs, Grenaches, Rhone, 60, and at the highest end of the spectrum of tannin, which is Cabernets and Bordeaux and the like, Shiraz, maybe, you're 65 max, although that's the sweet spot for everyone is 60. But what does that look like? Would that be the geek with a thermometer? And that's how I did the article for Esquire. I ran around with its thermometer and a wingman and my editor, AJ Jacobs' credit card, and took everybody down. Everybody settled except Roberta Van back then. And here's the deal: it doesn't matter what the temperature. You just need an ice bucket with water, ice and water, because an ice bucket without water is for just bloody oysters. Sorry, this is a lesson for everybody. Nothing works in an ice bucket without water. Every party I walk into, people have everything jammed to ice, and everything is kind of sitting on the surface. And then I grab a pitcher of water and I dump it in,
right.
And I grab another pitcher of water and I dump it in, and you make a bath, and everything chills down instantly. So you can't do anything without water. And with the restaurants, too, I always joke, Rob, you walk into like a fabulous restaurant, and the water comes out with a white cloth around the neck, and they pour your fancy water, and then they put it in the ice bucket and they pile drive it in. Or they do wine. They pour the champagne and they pile drive it into a pile of ice chips, and it won't go in because there's no water. So I'm the guy when they walk away, I grab everyone's water glasses and pour it into the ice bucket and say, let's make a bath that actually works. So we do that. 5 to 10 minutes is all it takes. And here's the experiment, Rob. Put your 83 Cabernet on the counter, or whatever it is. Put 3 glasses out. Mark them however you can with a grease pencil or a China marker or your doodads, and mark them 1, 2, 3. Pour glass number 1, add room temp. Pour it halfway up. Put it into the ice bucket up to the neck in ice water and an ice bath. 5 minutes from the ignition timer. Take it out. Give it a good swirl. Pour into glass number 2. Back in the ice for 5 minutes. Ding. Glass number 3. Smell them and taste them, and you will never, ever, ever choose number one, ever. Ever, ever, ever. Even if it's something you're used to. If you've only drunk it warm, you can't get past the beautiful smell of fruit and everything that's coming up in 2. And 3 is even better, or depending on whether it was a wine that wants to be a little warmer. Like Cabernet, maybe it's a little bit cool. But the good news about cold wine is it warms up. The bad news about warm wine is it only gets warmer. So if you do this, you take that into the dining room and show your friends and say, hey, I have a fun question. I can't decide which wine I should serve first tonight. Can you guys taste these and tell me what you like best? And it turns into a great debate, and it's a bloodbath, and people accumulate this who like number 1, of course. But 2 and 3 always win, and it's a subjective choice. But once you tell them it's the same bottle, people they can't believe that that's the same bottle. And I would say it's 5 minutes changes everything. And people don't think they can do it with the red wine. It's like, oh, I've never put red wine in ice. I'm like, no, the only thing you can't do is put red wine over ice, like my people used to back in the 70s. We don't want to do that ever again.
You have, there's just so much wisdom that you've imparted in such a short time, and it goes back to my question about, my question was kind of what people need to know, and you've already given us a half a dozen things to know, but this is why I think there's always this kind of general confusion, because what seems so obvious to you, even though you're the expert, is so not obvious to so many other people. Like wine, I guess for some reason, had been taken over by kind of, authorities and snobs, and most of the stuff that they put out in the world, is not really helpful. What you're talking about, whether it comes to temperature, whether it comes to pairing, and almost anything else, this is what kind of people need to know, and well, therein lies the value of your expertise and the work that you do. So thank you for that. And I will also tell you, Anthony, that I am pleased to report that I'm an Amex. I'm an Amex Platinum guy. So, even if I can't find you in the moment, it's a good thing I have your text. But it doesn't matter. The point I was going to make is I might have asked you questions that took you in 5 different directions, but you've addressed them all. And it reminds me that it's kind of why people have been so confused about wine, is because they just don't really know a lot of the stuff that is common knowledge to you, whether it comes to pairing or whether it comes to temperature. These are all valuable insights that you're offering, and I appreciate it. And I also wanted to say that I didn't know that I could reach you as an Amex Platinum guy, but more importantly for me, I could reach you by text for the a la minute. Hey, before I lose you in the time that we have remaining, let's do a couple of quick, lightning type things. What's with natural wines now? What's going on with that?
Are we recording now?
Yeah.
Oh, I'm buzzing around my kitchen getting a glass of
Oh,
water.
is that what that was? That's not a problem. Don't worry about it.
I thought you were going to tell me that, okay, we're back. Sorry.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Hey, we're back. But what's going on with natural wines? What's that all about?
Oh, God. It's so contentious right now. I mean, and I can't name names, but I have friends who, if they hear this, will be one way or the other. So it's sort of like taking our whole organic biodynamic food discovery of the last decade and now taking it to wine to say, like, the most minimal action taken yields the most true expressions of the wines. And I have to be honest with you, it's not for everyone, and it's not even always for me. I think that when you taste wines in their Roman era state, there's a lot of funk there. There's a lot of natural aromas that come out, that are a part of the process of not being processed in any modern way that can really be off-putting. So there are some wines I think are lovely and wow, this is really pretty, and gosh, because it's not been oaked, it's not been put through a forced malolactic, blah 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 blah. But and a lot of times you put them to your nose, and it's like this was grown on the side of Mount Etna without any intervention, and it smells like the sulfur egg albumin that you expect when you're near a volcano.
Right. This is where the designation, that's barn-like. This is the kind way of saying when wine smells like crap, basically.
Right. Exactly. Exactly. So, but I'm the first to tell everyone when we smell wine, if we're doing the very classic 5 S's of tasting: to see, swirl, smell, sip, savor. I'll say, okay, but smell doesn't always indicate how the wine's going to taste. It could be an indicator, but and case in point is that the greatest Loire Valley Sauvignon Blancs often smell like cat pee. Well, I can't say that I've ever tasted cat pee, but the wine is delicious, and I don't make any connections to cat pee once I taste it.
Right.
But that, and like you just said, the barnyard, it's like classic Bordeaux, smells like the barn. The minute the farmer opens it after a whole night of whatever goes on in there.
Yeah.
That's the smell that overwhelms you.
Yeah.
And does it taste like that?
No. Generally, no. Yeah.
But I was like, let's start positives. Does it smell like, let's look at a classic white. This tasting I did last week at Augusta, we tasted Furiato's beautiful whites from all over the islands in Mount Etna. And it's like, do we smell flowers? Do we smell minerals? Do we smell like Flintstone vitamins? Think of all the things that come to your nose. Does anybody have anything negative to say? And it's not a problem if you do, but we're in the same territory where everything smells really pretty. And so for me, I'm already excited because I know that it's not a challenging wine. It's not a natural wine. It's not something that's historically funky like the cat pee. Sorry, my phone's now getting text. I got to turn it off.
That's okay.
It doesn't smell like anything funky or anything like that. But that just means once we get past how to taste together, then we can try something funky and see that there's connections here, but it doesn't dictate the taste. It just might tell us where we are or what's going on.
Makes perfect sense. Listen, I didn't mean to interrupt. It's just that in the short time that we have remaining, because I know that you got to go pick up your kid. Let me just throw a couple of things at you quickly. I had recently a Paolo Bea Santa Chiara 2015. Long story short, it was an orange wine, and to be honest with you, I'm no wine expert. I had never really heard, I wasn't familiar with orange wine. I was blown away by how kind of great it was for me. Do you have some sense of that or some point of view about that stuff? I thought it was amazing.
Sure. So, the orange wines I feel like they were the trailblazers, and I wrote about these in La Cucina Italiana, which I still mourn the loss of that magazine, but I was the wine critic there for about 5 years, and I wrote about the orange wines when they first came in. I actually sat down with Joe Campanelli over at Tuesday at the time. Or we were at maybe at Delanima, and we tasted a whole bunch of them. He was a huge fan, like Ralph Cornelison, the king of Sicilian orange wine.
That's where by the way, that's where I had this bottle at his new place over there in Brooklyn.
Oh, right, at Fausto. Right. It was Frank Cornelison, not Ralph. So when they're on and they're ready and they're right, they are amazing. But they really still are. They're another category. You can't call and the fact that we call them orange wines is true because not white wines that we're used to. They're definitely not packing the acidity we expect in a brilliant Sauvignon Blanc or a fine Chablis or whatever. But they're other, and this goes back to sort of
contemplation. The Italians love to talk about this is a wine of contemplation. And it means like it's not like for tipping back. And by the way, Rob, here's another thing I'll say and go on tangent, I'm sorry. I always talk about wine and food pairing and say, is there a perfect pairing? Well, there are some ideals, but honestly, a bag of Doritos never hurt a bottle of wine I've ever had.
Right.
So but when I talk about European wine, and that's taking Americans out of their comfort zone. So you tell me you love Cabernet, and I talk to you about Bordeaux, you might not understand that Cabernet is the predominant grape in most Bordeaux. So I'll say, well, do you like Bordeaux? Well, then we have to talk about it that way. And I'm getting there. I'm getting to what I'm getting into with you. Is to say, European wines, less fruit, more earth, more place. They demand food. They taste so much better with food. Americans, we drink varietally. We know our Chardonnay, our Pinot Noir, our Cabernet, our Pinot Grigio. And we drink mostly New World American. They're delicious. They're delicious without thinking of food. So my parallel was always Old World, food and wine belong together. New World, wine is food. Chardonnay tastes like biting into a golden delicious apple.
Yeah.
Pinot Noir tastes like a basket of strawberries. It's delicious on its own. So that takes me back to saying with the orange wines, all that kind of stuff. They're really funky and they have to be tasted a certain way, and maybe with certain a nice dry cheese or something. A hunk of Parmigiano Reggiano and a Cornelissen orange wine is going to taste amazing. Or that Talavea at Santa Chiara, because you're adding fat and salt to something that needs a little something to round it out, and there it is. But now we've gone to Young Orange to talk about natural altogether, and they're from all over the planet, and some are great and some are weird.
Yeah,
plain and simple.
My last two for you in the time that we have. Number one is that you, and it's not even wine, this is cooking. You actually taught me something. And you can describe for people what it is, but it's after you grilled maybe a piece of swordfish, and then you put it in a bath of olive oil. You put it right off the grill into a bath of olive oil that had herbs in it. Explain and describe that, because I still to this day use the method.
Yeah, my mother-in-law is from Sicily and not Italian American. She was born there and came over literally pregnant with my wife in 1967. So she lives here in Jersey City. She lives a few blocks away, and she is a grill master. She does constantly grilling, and she does this. She calls la bagna, the bath, the bagna, and it changes for whatever she's making. So the base is always what's the glass? It's a Pyrex.
Pyrex, yes, exactly.
Platter, right? That she has next to the grill. She pours a thin veil of olive oil in there, and then she adds, with using her red-handled kitchen knife with her thumb against her side of her index finger, she's chopping herbs.
Right.
It's rosemary, it's thyme, it's mint, it's whatever.
Right.
And the acid changes depending on them. So if it's fish, it's going to be lemon.
Right.
She'll squeeze a lemon in there. She'll add some herbs. If it's meat, she may put a little red wine vinegar or even a splash of balsamic. And if she doesn't have it, she'll just put the lemon. But there's always acid and olive oil in the bath. And then you put whatever comes off the grill right in there while it's hot, and it really starts spooning over. And then all those resting juices become part of this amazing sauce.
Right.
You don't foil it directly. You can just put a foil on a diagonal, just leave a little hole here and there. But,
right.
And then she lets stuff rest for a few minutes while she brings it back into the table. And by the time we're ready to eat it, it's this amazing sauce that goes with everything from fish to lamb to steaks to chicken to everything. So I constantly do this whenever I can get to someone's grill. I don't grill in my apartment, but yeah, I'll even do that sometimes with stuff that I roast in the oven, because I'll take some of that fat from there and use that as the base and add some acid and brighten it up. And then cut everything, put it on a platter, and use that as a sauce.
You've reminded me that, and I know that our time is up here, but I could talk to you any time, because we've only covered literally 1/3 of just the few questions that I had. And I want to tell you this. First of all, by the way, if you're looking for a grill, here's the deal. You come to my place, I'll do some grilling in exchange for going to your local pizzeria over there in Jersey City. I just want to throw that at you. The other thing I want to say to you before I let you go is, where are people going to find you in the online world, for example? What's the easiest way for people to get to you?
If you go to my website, anthonygiglio.com.
Okay, perfect. That's
everything is there. It's Giglio.
Okay, perfect. We got that.
And it's an adult calendar of events and things I'm doing from there.
Oh, that's excellent. And then the final question for you, my friend, in honor of my old friend, Gene Siskel, is what do you know for sure, Anthony?
What do I know for sure?
Yeah.
I know that. Oh God, I hate these questions, Rob.
I'm sorry. Okay, then skip it. I don't want to put any break. You've done a beautiful. By the way, you've done a beautiful job. You're going to call me later and you go, I just thought of what it is that I know for sure, but don't worry about it right now. You're a great guest. I'm happy to have you back anytime. Ladies and gentlemen, that is Anthony Guglio, and you can find him at AnthonyGuglio, GIGLIO.com. Thank you, my friend, for the insight, and let's do it again at some point, okay?
Thank you, Rob.
Perhaps over a pizza in Jersey City, but I'm just saying. All right, talk to you soon, brother.
All right, bye-bye.
Bye, thank you.
Yes, there he is, Anthony Guglio. He is good, entertaining. He knows his stuff. Guy's got a lot going down. Travels around the world, talks about wine, drinks the wine, and eats pizza in Jersey City. Man, he just it's got a good thing going, and he's funny. In fact, you check out his website, and you'll see. I'm sure that he's posted on there the story that he did. At the Moth, great story, and worth listening to. Anthony Guglio, thank you for coming, Mr. Guglio. That was good. Back to our podcast here, All You Can Eat, and as I do every week, I will recommend something from the Costco because I am the Costco ho. And this week, it's going to be something that I have spoken about before, but haven't recommended in this forum. But there's a product at the Costco that comes in the refrigerated area, and it's sold by a company called Blue Hill Bay, which is located in Brooklyn, New York. And Blue Hill Bay makes a product that they sell at the Costco, and it's called a smoked whitefish salad. Now, I'm going to be honest about this. I can see where people who don't know and haven't tried it could find the idea of it distasteful. And that'd be wrong. There's nothing wrong with whitefish, nor is there anything wrong with smoked whitefish. And then when you make a whitefish salad, in the same way that you might make a tuna salad or any of those type of, those type of appetizing, I guess you would use, maybe some mayo, some sour cream, whatever it is that you use to creamy it up. The Blue Hill Bay smoked whitefish salad is quite simply the best of its kind that I've ever had. It's not that I've had a ton from all over the place, but the reason that I can speak with some authority on the subject is because what I have had is I have had sandwiches, and I've had sandwiches the world over. I mean, I have literally had sandwiches on every continent with the exception of Antarctica. And let's face it, what kind of sandwich are you going to get there anyway? For all I know, you could actually get smoked whitefish up there, but that's besides the point. I've had, porchetta, and I've had croque monsieur, right? And I'm talking about international, sandwiches, and sandwiches down in South America and across the world. And in this country, come on, let's face it, you can have a great sandwich pretty much anywhere you go. If you're in Florida, maybe you're having a Cuban sandwich. If you're up in the Northeast, maybe you're having a lobster roll. Again, lobster salad, nothing wrong with that, right? And you're in New Orleans, and you could have a muffaletta, you could have a po' boy. Oh my God, I want another one of those. Fried oyster, fried shrimp, po' boy. Anywhere you go in this country, right? You go out to the West Coast, I don't know, like a Vietnamese sandwich, for example, the banh mi, fantastic. You're in New York City, maybe it's a bacon, egg, and cheeser, or a pastrami sandwich. Hello. Meanwhile, here's the point that I make. No matter where you are and what you've had, I've had a lot of sandwiches. There's no sandwich that I would rather have, and I mean this genuinely from the bottom of my heart, than a smoked whitefish salad sandwich on a chewy New York bagel. I mean, like, seriously, somebody said, okay, death row sandwich. That's it for me. The smoked whitefish salad on a chewy New York bagel. By the way, for anybody that doesn't know this, When a bagel is coming out of the bagel oven, you don't freaking toast it. Okay? It is perfect. The only time you toast a bagel is a day later because it's a little chewy. You might as well toast it up. But fresh bagels, good ones anyway, are not to be toasted. Anyway, so you get a fresh New York bagel. Maybe it's plain, maybe it's poppy, maybe it's sesame, maybe it's even everything. And you have it with white fish salad. Can you improve on that? I doubt it. I mean, if I wanted to gild the lily, maybe a couple of pieces of salmon roe, maybe a touch of onion. Long story short, Costco. Costco sells Blue Hill Bay smoked whitefish salad in a container, and it's the best whitefish salad that I've had. And frankly, if there were a 10-step program for whitefish salad, hello, my name is Rob. So this week at Costco, ladies and Germans, Blue Hill Bay smoked whitefish salad. I love that. And while we're on the subject of products and services that I might recommend, I will remind you that when you want biscotti, and you want rugelach, and you want cookies, and you want fabulous baked goods like that, and you want them packaged, personalized and packaged, and you want them delivered, you go to freshflowersllc.com. Now, Fresh Flowers, that's F-L-O-U-R-S, LLC.com. Oh, great stuff. Great cookies, beautifully packaged for every occasion. Just a great move. Suppose that you want something a little on the sweet candy side, and you go for toffee. We love toffee. I mean, who doesn't love toffee? Most toffee is the same. It's all good. It's not like there's a bad toffee, but Biggie's crack toffee is better because it's thin and it's like crisp, and that's why they call it crack, because once you start, it's kind of hard to stop. And I will use it straight up, but it's actually, to me, perfect when you put it on some vanilla ice cream, maybe a shot of espresso. That drink, Mr. Guglio would tell you, is called an affogato, right? It's a scoop of great vanilla ice cream with a hot shot of espresso put on top of it. It gets melty and it gets fabulous. It's called affogato. And I gild the lily there too. I take some cracked toffee and I crackle it up into little pieces and I put it on top of that. That's 3 ingredients to as good a dessert as you can get. I don't care whether you call it homemade or not. I mean, it isn't, except that you made it. So there's that. Cracktoffee.com. And I liked that stuff before Oprah came around and made it one of her favorite things. I just want to say I was there early on the crack toffee thing. Cracktoffee.com. And if you're local, and by local I mean like Jersey local, and you want some killer cupcakes and big old cakes made by a professional baker for a super party for your kids or for an anniversary or for like an occasion, you go to your Facebook and you look up Cupcake Mama 517 and get yourself some fabulous cupcakes. And as long as we're having cake and cookie and toffee, I will tell you this, that I am a fan of King's Row Coffee. You can find them online as well, kingsrowcoffee.com. I like all their coffees, and I like them because they're different from most people's in that they're blended in the same way that winemakers will blend wines, which is quite common. The folks over at the King's Row are blending coffees to make beautiful coffee. So that is kingsrowcoffee.com. And finally, my recommendation should come as no surprise to those of you who have heard before, but I, Robert Rosenthal, am the author of a book based on my experience of being the guy who cooks all the meals here at home. And so for people, particularly people that want to, know how to cook, basically, know how to put something great on the table. You don't have to master 100 things. You could have 4 or 5 really go-to things that are great. So I wrote a cookbook, and it was based on the idea that I went to cooking school so that you don't have to, right? And the book is written in such a way, kind of the way I talk, to be honest with you. I have a formula, and I could tell you the formula in 6 words, my friends. Most taste, fewest ingredients, least effort. Are you with me? Most taste, fewest ingredients, least effort. So I not only will teach in the book how to cook, right? What tools you should have, what do you want to have in the pantry, what are the kind of 10 most essential cooking methods, whether it's braising or whether it's baking or whether it's sautéing. And then after laying down the basics, I offer up 100 recipes. These recipes are predominantly 5 ingredients. I mean, so this is stuff that most anybody could make. Are there some recipes in there that are more advanced? Sure. Are there some that are like stupid easy? Yes. But the point is, a great book for those who want to learn how to cook, want to give a book to somebody else to cook, and teach them. This is the book that you want. It's called Short Order Dad. And whether you get it on Barnes & Noble or Walmart or obviously, Amazon, I think for 10, 11, 12 bucks these days is what they're selling it for. There's still some in stock. Short Order Dad by yours truly, Rob Rosenthal. Thank you to Mr. Anthony Guglio for being with me here on podcast number 7 of All You Can Eat. Back next week, Wednesday at 8 p.m. for All You Can Eat, episode number 8. We'll see what that is going to be. And there you have it, my friends. I remind you that life is short, so never waste a meal.
I'm the Teflon Pan Man. I'm the Teflon Pan Man. Ain't nothing gonna stick on